we go through something traumatic, and as a result, in our healing process, we're actually better off than before we started.
Welcome to the Secrets of Being podcast. I'm Dr. Dawn Earhart Whitty, your guide on a transformative journey of personal development and discussions of universal truths. Join me and a panel of life coaches and spiritual leaders from around the world discussing how to handle some of life's greatest challenges. We will be sharing stories of love, faith, and inspiration with you, our faithful listeners, to live your happiest and most fulfilling life, full of purpose and passion for yourself, your families, and the world. We are here to be the change we wish to see. Let the conversation begin. Welcome to the Secrets of Being podcast. I am thrilled and honored today to introduce you to Dr. Jennifer Levin. She is a workplace trauma strategist and the author of the Traumatic Loss Workbook. She also is the host of Untethered: Healing the Pain from a Sudden Death podcast. And I know we're going to have an amazing conversation. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is an honor and a pleasure. And this is a topic that I might start to cry because I lost my dog in March. And anytime I think about him, I cry. And I lost him in March 18th, and I've still cried every single day. So, but I always like to start off the podcast with a quote. And this one, I was looking for quotes on grief, but this is something that I've saved in my phone over and over again. And it says, grief, I've learned, is really just love. It's all the love you want to give, but cannot. All that unspent love gathers up in the corners of your eyes, the lump in your throat, and in that hollow part of your chest. Grief is just love with no place to go. And that's by Jamie Anderson. So yeah, it is. It's love with no place to go. So you are a workplace trauma strategist. I want to know, A, what is that? And B, did you start on your journey with that intention, or did you fall into this line of work? How did that evolve for you?
Wow. So by training, I am a licensed therapist in the state of Washington and California, and have a private practice that specializes working with people who've experienced a sudden and unexpected death. And after I started to do that, and I kind of fell into that because younger people who had loved ones who had died in unexpected ways just kind of found me. And I realized that there wasn't any services because you have this combination of both trauma and grief, and they need to be dealt with very differently. And so once I started doing that, then some of the local businesses started to call and say, hey, we just experienced a death of, I started off with the Easter seals of one of our residents, and our staff is grieving. Could you help? And then that went to schools and businesses and corporations. And so it just kind of evolved. And the way Traumatic Grief Solutions, which is the way I operate the workplace work, happened is there were just patterns and themes that I started to see over and over. I wish we were prepared. It would have been so helpful if we had thought of that in advance. And so when I work with business places, schools, organizations, communities, it's okay, how prepared are you for a sudden or unexpected loss or a traumatic event? What would you do? What resources do you have? What training do you need? And so we start off with an assessment, and then we build a plan after that on what it is that they need to do to feel like they can be best prepared. We can never be 100% prepared. We never know what's going to happen. But just the fact, I love what I do because these are business leaders, human beings who are so invested in their employees that they want to think through this in advance before something happens.
So your programs, you come in before there is any type of loss, so that if and when that does happen, they're prepared for it?
We do both. We help navigate after a sudden or unexpected death in the workplace or a school. And then we have a process called proactive planning, which is that strategic advanced planning looking at different scenarios, what you would do, how would you respond, and getting resources and trainings done beforehand. So it's two-pronged.
Nice, nice. That I mean, I would have never even thought of something like that, but it's wonderful that you have that. You know, I lost my dad when I was 32. That was
Mm.
back in 2000. And I remember at his funeral, a friend came and she said, you know, I lost my mom suddenly and my dad along long term. And she goes, they're both hard.
Oh, they
And
are.
yes, I've raised them both. I lost my mother-in-law, very long, drawn out dementia, in and out of doctors. And then my dad had a heart attack the day after
Yeah.
Father's Day, very boom, you know. And so, like, how does the grieving process differ between the sudden loss versus something that's more long term?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in a long-term loss, I mean, of course, we never know when somebody's life is going to end. We can't predict it to the moment, the day, but you are anticipating that it's going to happen. And so you go through something called anticipatory grief, whether you know it or not. Like, oh, my loved one has to stop working, or they can't drive a car anymore. They've lost their ability to walk or to communicate. And each one of those are little losses, like mini opportunities to grieve. And that's that anticipatory grief that you go through. And sometimes that can last for years. And it's so hard to watch someone you love suddenly decline. And then there's ups and downs, and it's a very difficult situation. But you do get a chance to somewhat mentally prepare yourself, maybe to have some conversations, to do some planning in advance. Whereas and you know, a sudden or unexpected, a health crisis, an accident, an overdose, a suicide, you wake up one day and your day starts off in a certain way, and then all of a sudden there's this event that happens and your life is changed for good. Not for good, but it's changed permanently because of what's happened. So those are kind of the differences off the top. With an unexpected death, it's also very often that we ask ourselves, could this have been prevented? Could I've done something different? What if? And not to say you don't go down that same train of thought in a longer one, but there's no opportunity for goodbyes. Oftentimes we worry, did our loved one suffer? Were they in pain? What if you are the person who finds your loved one and you weren't expecting that? Then that can cause these trauma symptoms to occur that you need to stabilize, that you need to work with before you can actually begin the actual grieving process.
Yeah, and how do you help somebody who's in the throes, either way, of the unexpected or the long term? How do you help somebody start that process? And I know individuals, it varies from person to person, right? And the situation and all of that. But how do you tell them, how do you help them start to that grieving process?
Yeah, so it's very different for both, and it depends on when an individual might come to work with me. After sudden death, I've seen people 48 hours afterwards, or 3 months, or 5 years. And so it's where is that person right now? Are they experiencing trauma symptoms? You know, rumination, constantly thinking about what happened, hypervigilance, waiting for the next shoe to drop, you know, high levels of anxiety, flashbacks, nightmares, all of those things. They are definitely not something that happens universally, but they do happen quite often after a sudden and unexpected death. And so it's a lot of stabilization in the beginning, recreating safety, using routines and structure, identifying what are things that feel comfortable. You know, I've had individuals that I've worked with who've had a loved one die in a car accident. Well, they don't want to drive because they're fearful. So it's really what's being avoided because of it. So it's really working on getting their resources together. You know, who are their social supports, whether it's is there a religious belief system or community that can help, and really helping that person feel safe again. And at the same time, you're not ignoring the grief, but then how do we grieve the loss without focusing on the circumstances of how they died?
Mm.
And that can be very difficult after a traumatic event. just real quickly, when there's that long thing, it's acknowledging all of those losses along the way and letting yourself grieve that, helping with the process of validating and normalizing, like there's thoughts of, I can't do this any longer, or how long is this going to go on? That's so common, especially if somebody has a long, slow degenerative disease. And
Mhm.
so there are two very different paths. And then the grief is different afterwards because it's like I've been caring for my loved one or I've been watching this happen, and now all of a sudden that's gone. What do I do now? Who am I now? And so it's still the gut-wrenching pain of grief and losing somebody that we love dearly, but we approach it differently.
Mhm. Now, as a professional that deals with people that are in active grief, doesn't that weigh heavy on you?
It does. I've done a lot of things to try and keep myself grounded and connected. And but if I don't feel it, then I'm not doing my work either. But I always told myself if I, heard a story and it didn't move me, then I'm no longer the right person for this position anymore. But yes, it does weigh heavily, but it's also taught me so much. And I've learned how to care for myself in different ways. During the pandemic, I moved from Southern California to a beautiful island in Puget Sound because I just wanted to be somewhere breathtaking, beautiful, which was a counterbalance of the stories that I hear. I don't watch a lot of news.
Good.
My clients tell me what's going on. I'm very well informed, but that, I have to save my emotional energy for the work I do, and watching the news is something that would be even heavier on me.
Yes.
So, spending time in nature, hiking, things like that. And then there's also something called post-traumatic growth that happens not for everybody, but there's been a lot of research done by doctors Tedeschi, I hope I'm saying their names right, and Calhoun. I don't have it written in front of me. But basically, they acknowledge this phenomenon where we go through something traumatic. And as a result, in our healing process, we're actually better off than before we started. And that may sound crazy, but they've identified 5 dimensions, and I'm trying to see if I can remember them all right now. Having a greater appreciation for life, deeper relationships, willingness to take new risks or adventures, deeper spiritual beliefs. And I'm not probably saying them all right, but to get back to what we were talking about, when I work with a client long enough and I am able to watch how they came in after this devastating loss and what's happened to them along the way and how they're reframing their life or rebuilding meaning in despite of what happened,
Mhm.
that's very gratifying as well. So,
That's beautiful. When you were saying that, that gave me chills because I can say in my own life, I mean, my dad, I was young, 32, well, youngish, but I just remember thinking, I used to be afraid to fly over oceans because I don't like heights. I don't like flying. And flying over ocean to me was terrifying. But after my dad passed, he died mowing the lawn. And I said, I could die mowing the lawn. So I am not going to keep myself from doing something I really want to do because I'm afraid,
yeah.
because life can just go like that. So
Yeah.
that's what you're speaking, referring to that kind of growth.
Right. Yes, a deeper appreciation for life or willing to take risks or try something new. So, like, I'm going to start risking flying over the ocean because I've learned, that life is short, and I want to take advantage of these things and not hold myself back. So, obviously, this post-traumatic growth is for any type of traumatic event. And so, it could sound offensive to say, how would I ever be better off, afterwards since my loved one died? But you experience growth in these areas and you're better off in some of those areas. So if that makes
Yes.
sense.
It totally makes sense. And another thing that I took away from, losing my dad, he died the day after Father's Day. And I talked to him on Father's Day because it was Father's Day. And the last words I said to him were, I love you, Dad. I'll see you next week. Because I was going to go visit the following week. So there was that part where it's like, I was like a week away from seeing you and you're gone. But it is a reminder to me, like, no matter what is going on in my circumstances with people that I love, I don't stay angry too long. I try to, the last words I say, I always want to make sure that they're of love and that this person knows. Like, I'm not going to let like stupid disagreements or silly arguments keep that love from being expressed all the time.
Yeah, good for you. That's
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Dad.
And you probably
So,
didn't feel that right away. It took a while before you were able to get there, I'm sure.
yeah, but I was really grateful that I knew that I got to speak to him before he passed and that my last words were, I love you.
Yeah.
Like that was a very, I'm grateful for that.
Yes.
So I think I heard something in one of the podcasts I listened to that you did that you had worked in hospice before this. How
I
long
did.
did you work in that field?
So,
And I need to know some of the things that you learned from those experiences.
sure. So I was the executive director of a hospice, and this is a different type of hospice. It's called a volunteer hospice. And these hospices were actually around before the Medicare and the medical hospices came about. And so this hospice, there were, I think, about maybe 24 in the US at the time. We didn't provide any medical care. It was all psychosocial support. And so we trained volunteers so they could go and sit with people who were on a medical hospice. We did community trainings and presentations. We offered counseling, and all of our services were free. And so I, I think you asked me what did I learn from that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So
Because
hospice.
working with people at the end of their days,
Mhm.
there's got to be so much that you learn and take away from that.
Yeah, I think I learned some of the same things that I learned from my clients. I also do work with clients who are living with cancer. Is you know, to make the choice to enter hospice, you are acknowledging that you are dying and that you really want to focus on quality of life and be around family and friends and kind of make the end of your life as best as possible, minimize pain, things like that. And I've just learned about the power of connection. And, I was doing my work over COVID, and that was probably some of the hardest times because we need connections to others and to get that hug or to have somebody sit with us in silence who's capable of companioning us on our journey. And during COVID, all we had was Zoom. And so here you have somebody who's just had this horrific loss, and other people can't come over and be with them and support them. So I really learned about the power of connection, allowing yourself to be vulnerable to another person. When you do that, they open up and share so much. And through hospice, that we all are living and dying. And I love when people can embrace and understand that and want to make that the best possible experience, even though it's got a very difficult ending. You can still, there's always hope. There's always a possibility that we can make things as good as possible, even in the worst circumstances.
That's beautiful. And I'm so glad you said the power of connection because I remember I don't watch the news either. And so when all the COVID stuff was happening, I literally, what my friend was telling me, oh my gosh, this is happening and this is happening. So I finally did turn on the news because I'm like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, I am not afraid of catching COVID, but I'm afraid of being disconnected from people because once we lose our connection to others, that's the meaning of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So so okay, this is a question, and I don't know how you want to answer it, but um, have you had people come to you and tell you things that have either reinforced your faith or gave you some solace or some peace about the whole process of dying and the eternal soul? I mean, because that I would love to hear your take on that since you work with it so
Yeah.
closely.
Yeah. I've been so privileged to work with so many different people. And like you said, everybody is so different. And I've seen people embrace their faith and that be such a strong pillar through their
Mhm.
grief. I've seen people reject it because they feel disappointed
They're
in
angry.
um, disappointed or let down by their
Mhm.
belief system. I've seen people who connect to their loved ones. They believe they connect to their loved ones who are no longer living in signs and communications or through mediums. And what it's done for me is anything is possible. Who am I to say what happens, what doesn't happen? But I've just heard amazing stories from the different people I've worked with, and I'm just fortunate that they share those with me and that some of those experiences do provide them so much peace and comfort. And so I'm open to anything being possible.
Yes, yes. The world is full of infinite possibilities. And I always say, look, if I'm wrong with the way I think about like life after,
Hmm.
this physical body ends, at least it makes this journey better.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
could be wrong, but you know what? At least this journey is happier. And I've had my phone is like at max capacity. So I've been going through and like deleting things off my phone. And my mother-in-law, she passed away several years ago. And she was Catholic and I bought her a rosary when she was, not able to walk very much. And you could wrap it around your wrist. And after she passed, I took that back. And when I went to Rwanda, I went on a Catholic retreat, and I'm not Catholic, but I went on this retreat and I brought that with me because I
Mm,
thought, you know what, she would love this.
mm,
And I was texting my ex-husband. He was my husband at the time, but I was texting him and he said he had a dream about his mom. And he said his mom told him that he needed to call me. And he said, right now. And she said, no, we're at the Genocide Museum. And I was sitting at a dinner when I got this message because I hadn't told him what our itinerary was. I didn't tell him we were at that genocide museum that day. There's no other way he could have known that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I had to leave the room and just cry because I was like, how did that happen? And she said,
yeah.
we were at the genocide museum, not I.
You, yeah,
Yeah. So I have stories like that, either my dad or my dogs and so I do have a faith that, there is something beyond this. But
yeah.
again, even if I'm wrong, at least
Our
I have
body,
comfort.
yeah, and such a pillar of support because it can, having your faith, having your belief system can be incredibly important to the healing process.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I am so grateful that there are people like you because I don't have like the the composure to be able to bear what you bear on a daily basis. That's very heavy emotional stuff. I'm
Yeah.
sure you have dogs, so that probably also helps you in the
Yep,
processing and
yep,
alleviating.
yep, and dogs, yep. And my dogs are the world to me, and they do provide me a lot of comfort and support. But
Yeah,
hearing stories like what you just shared from clients that I've worked with that just keep me like amazed and infinite possibilities that help when there's also so much heaviness as well. So it's
yeah, it gives us
balance,
hope.
good balance. Yeah,
And love, I think, is one of the most important things we can have in our lives. And
yeah,
I don't believe love goes away.
yeah.
So I read this book by Laura Lynn Jackson called The Light Between Us, and
Hmm.
she's a psychic medium,
Hmm.
and she talks about these stories, and she says, love is that thing that we
Hmm.
carry between this lifetime and the next lifetime. So if that's the thing that lasts, that
Yeah.
should be the thing that we hold on to the hardest or care about the most.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I want to say there's also something that called continued bonds that's been researched and is very powerful. And that's developing an everlasting connection or a bond with your loved one who's no longer physically present.
Oh,
And so taking those rotary, I'm in the Rotary Club, those rosary beads with you, that was a connection, a continued bond that you had with your mother-in-law. If you've had a loved one who died, and let's say they loved animals, and so you decide that you are going to go volunteer at a shelter because that keeps that bond, that connection going even after death. And so these aren't signs or things, but these are things that you actively do to keep that relationship feeling strong and your loved one's presence to be able to feel it. So there you can there's a million things that you can do, but thinking about somebody who you loved who's no longer here and what were some of the things that you did together? What did they like? How can you keep that going? And that allows that bond to grow. And I'm blanking. The last name is you have show notes? I can give you
Yes,
the
yes, yes.
I can give you the name of the author who wrote all about continued bonds so that somebody can do some more reading on it because there's been a lot of research on the emphasis of or the importance of continued bonds in grief.
I love that. And that helps you with the grieving process, that
Yeah.
bond that you still
Yeah.
share.
Yes,
So
it helps adapt to that new life that you have now that your loved one's no longer there. So absolutely a continued bond. Or Dr. Ted Rainerson uses the phrase presence within absence, being able to feel your loved one, whether you talk to them out loud or in your mind, or think about how would they respond to this. So being able to feel their presence as well can help with that adaptation during grief.
oh, that's beautiful. That is really beautiful. So I know you recently had the workbook come out and you have some online courses, is that correct?
I do. So last summer, my workbook, the traumatic loss workbook, was published. And to accompany that, I developed an online course, and it's got about 36 videos where I narrate through the book. And I have guest speakers and previous clients. So there's a lot of other people in the videos as well. And you can join the class at any time. But the nice thing about that, which I've received a lot of positive feedback, is sometimes you have a hard time reading when you're in grief. And here you just have to sit back and listen. And I demonstrate a lot of the techniques. I have a yoga instructor who comes on and talks about deep breathing. I have somebody else who comes on and talks about tapping and how you can use tapping during grief. And so the course is 6 months and you can join at any time and it's at your own individual pace. And then once a month, we actually meet together live, those people who are in the course with myself, and we talk about the course and any of the concepts. So it's called the Traumatic Loss Online Companion Course, and you can find it at my website.
And that
So
was my next question. Where can people find you? And we're going to put all of this in the show notes, but
thank
let them
you.
know where they can find you, how they can follow you, and learn more
Yeah,
about what it is you do.
absolutely. Absolutely. So the website for the book and the course is at Therapy Heals, and that's www.therapyheals.com. And then if somebody's interested in learning more about the business or corporate, you can look us up at Traumatic Grief Solutions, and that's the website, Traumatic Grief Solutions. I don't know my social media handles off the top of my head, but I can get those to you.
Yes, please
That's
do.
not
We'll
where
put them
I
in the
spend
show
my
notes.
time. Yes, that would be so lovely. I'd really appreciate that. So,
Absolutely.
traumatic grief can feel so isolating. And so, having an opportunity to interact with other individuals who are in your experience during this course is, I think, one of the big highlights as well.
Yeah,
So,
again, the connection,
yep,
the
yep,
connection, it
yep.
really is a magic elixir.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Thank
So,
you for doing the work that you do because I know it is a very heavy topic and it's very hard. It's probably the hardest thing we will ever experience in this lifetime is
yeah,
losing somebody we love dearly.
yeah,
And
but,
so, helping people get through that because sometimes you just get stuck and you don't even know what to do next.
yeah, yeah.
So, thank you for helping people navigate that.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the work you're doing and for having me on your show today. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, it's been an honor. And before we go, could you just leave us with one piece of wisdom, one nugget that you just want, you feel is so important that everybody needs to know this?
Oh my goodness, there are so many, but grief is so individual. It's your experience, it's your timeline. Take your time. Don't let other people influence, criticize, or judge. When you don't feel like somebody, or if you feel like somebody doesn't understand, seek out others who do, because you are not alone on this journey.
That's beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being the light that you are in the world. And thank you for being on our podcast.
Well,
And
thank
thank
you.
you, listeners, for tuning in to The Secrets of Being. Thank you for tuning in to the Secrets of Being podcast. We appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with more inspiring content. For further inspiration, visit thesecretsofbeing.com and join our community. Until next time, stay inspired and keep unlocking the secrets of being.